a dinner in which you, the public, will prepare. It's going to be delicious. The tickets are $20 each. There will be a sit-in special that will be presented by the NAACP Youth Council and advisors. The main address will be delivered by one of the original sit-inners, Calvin Luper. There will be other sit-inners that are present. And speaking of others, this has been a week in which we have celebrated the entire week, the Freedom Fiesta. Now, if you are in Oklahoma City and you have not taken part in the Freedom Fiesta program, I want you to take part. I want you to be there tonight. It was in August 1958 when the following young people went down and became the first in the sit-in movement. That was August 19th. Richard Brown, Elmer Edwards, Linda Pogue, Lana Pogue, Arita Tolliver, Calvin Luper, Marilyn Luper, Portwood Williams Jr., Lynzetta Jones, Gwendolyn Fuller, Alma Faye Posey, Barbara Posey, Goldie Battle, and Betty Germany. Tonight you will have the opportunity to see some of those young people. Now let's talk about this dinner tonight. I ask you to furnish some materials for the dinner. Some simple things like cakes, pies, chicken roast, salad, potatoes, vegetables, and so many of you have responded. And I want to thank you. Someone asked me, say, Miss Luper, you really have some nerve. I said, you're right, I do have nerve. I have nerve enough to ask you to pay $20 for a dinner and help to furnish the dinner. You have nerve, too, because you have nerve to sit at home on Monday nights while we wrestle with the problems of our young people who are trying to eliminate segregation in our area. This week, while you were home, the NAACP Youth Council were working, trying to make preparation for this day. Their support was behind the parade this morning. They did their best. Not only that, the NAACP Youth Council is getting ready to go to the state convention in Anadarko, Oklahoma in October, to the regional conference, leadership conference in Shreveport, Louisiana, to the regional leadership conference, which will be in Shreveport, Louisiana, and on to Washington, D.C. in July of 1988. These young people are planning to participate in all phases of the AXO program: chemistry, physics, sculpture, drama, vocal music, instrumental music, and I could go on down the list. And that's why you are paying $20 tonight. That's why you are donating cakes and pies. And you talking about some cakes and pies. You talking about some delicious food. We have it for tonight. I would like to just go over and let you know some of the cakes. And we have some of the best cake bakers in Oklahoma City. And when Mrs. Wanda Callahan tells you that she's going to bake a cake, you look out. Mrs. Hassie Winkfield, a cake for the night. Dr. Sharon has made it clear that she is baking a cake tonight. Cheryl Fowler, baking that cake tonight. Valerie Lewis, baking that cake tonight. Lou Wallace, have that lemon cake ready tonight. It is out of sight. And talking about cakes, we had Mrs. Mamie Sherd, who not only baked 2 cakes, but who bought 2 tickets for $40. She said, I'm with you. And when she walks in tonight, her tickets will be there waiting for her. Now, you're talking about pies. We have the pies for tonight. Dr. Stewart has made not 1, not 2, but 6 apple pies. Mrs. King has made your favorite pie. Mrs. Leola Ford looked at those sweet potatoes and said, I'm going to make a sweet potato pie. Now, it's not too late for some of you outstanding cooks to call me and tell me what you have done. Mrs. John Green, Wonder Green, has those potatoes together, and you talking about something that's delicious. Let's talk about meat for a while. Toby has that meat ready. That's, you know Toby quite well, an outstanding beautician, and also is connected with Allstate Insurance Company. Jocelyn Brown got up this morning with one thing on her mind, to fix that meat for the dinner. Yes, Rosetta Coleman is thinking about that cake, and she specializes in butter cakes. Mr. Gassaway, a school teacher, is fixing some meat for tonight. And Mr. Galloway is also fixing some meat for tonight. You haven't seen anything until you see what Mrs. Orange, that's Judge Orange's wife, fixing. I'm going to surprise you tonight. And you talking about a salad. Whenever Mrs. Lurks tells you that she's going to make a salad, Mrs. Lurks will come in there tonight with a salad so big that you will just scream. Now, Dorothy McLaughlin is a specialist in vegetables, and she says that the vegetables are ready. But then you have such professionals as Mrs. David Lee Hall, who has she has a pot of vegetables like you have never seen before. And Mrs. Watson, we call her the queen of the green cooking machinery. You talking about someone that can fix greens. Yum, yum, yum. And a cobbler. Mrs. Nancy Davis is already with her cobbler. And when Nancy Davis makes a cobbler, Letty Ruth Hunter say, I can make one too. Well, let's see now. What do we need to finish this dinner off tonight? Somebody asked me, say, Clara, what are they drinking? And I say, I don't know. None of my friends have called me and told me that they're going to bring something to drink tonight, because they realize if they don't bring anything to drink, they won't get anything to drink. Let me give you my telephone number here. And those of you, all I have to tell my radio audience is really what I need. My telephone number is 478-2103. Because of the large crowd that I'm expecting, I think I need some additional meat. I think I need some more salads and some more potatoes and some bread. Now, my telephone number here is 478-2103, and call me. I also need, I told you that how many tickets that I had out. I have space for about 20 or 25 more. Those of you may call me at 478-2103. Shelley, I know you must be really excited about tonight.
Yes, I am.
Well, what do you think will really happen tonight at that big dinner?
I know it'll be a good show with the speaker and the food and everything, but I think the sit-in special is going to steal the show.
Oh, you don't think that Calvin Luper, with his information, and certainly he's full of information, you don't think he's going to steal the show tonight?
He'll be good, but his sister will be better.
Which one? He has
Me.
two. Okay, you're going to be better. That's quite interesting. And Calvin Luper, we would like to congratulate you for being selected as a 1987 Freedom Fiesta speaker. We can hardly wait until tonight. My telephone number is 478-2103. Let's go back over to Freedom Fiesta Week. On August the 17th, it was the NAACP's day, and there was the NAACP Youth Council met at Freedom Center, and it was quite enjoyable. On August the 18th, it was Leola Ford and Cheryl Fowler's day. It was a day that was filled with excitement, and they specialized in a hot dog sale that was very, very successful. On the 19th, it was quite a shock. Mrs. Salonia Bennett came in with a sit-inner's tea. There were 13 chairs with names written beautifully. These are for the 13 and also for the adults that were there. Gifts were presented by Mrs. Bennett to the sit-inners that were present. Now, if you were one of the original, Mrs. Bennett has a gift for you, and you need to get in contact with her tonight as you come to the dinner and get your gift. It's a very, very beautiful gift. Mrs. Bennett showed off the talent of her family as her lovely daughter played the piano, and she's such a professional. Poetry and more poetry. Then the sit-inners related their most remembered experience. Then, on last night, it was a coronation of the 1987 royalty. And to tell you all about not only that day, but the President's Day, which was Shelley's Day, is our ace reporter, Shelley Luper.
On Thursday, we featured a scary movie, which was President's Day, and the next day was Lillian Oliver, Nancy Davis, and Letty Ruth Hunter's Day with the fashion show and the coronation of the King and Queen. The Freedom Fiesta Princess and Prince were Lionel Bennett and Alicia Hildreth. Mr. and Miss Freedom were Natay Patterson and David Fowler. Mr. and Miss Freedom Fiesta, the King was Dante Patterson and the Queen was Ebony Hood.
All right, this is the Clara Luper Radio Show, and certainly today is a day that we will remember in history. Remember now, I need you to call me at 478-2103. The people are really coming to this big dinner tonight. I've just received word that we have two very distinguished guests that have arrived in Oklahoma City from Wichita, Kansas, and certainly we would like to welcome them to Oklahoma City, and we know that they will enjoy this day. The Watkins Stevens Skyview Convalescent Nursing Home is located at 2200 Coltrane Road. The telephone is 487-1322. It's a home that's clean. It's a modern home for the sick and the aged. They have 24-hour nursing service. Mrs. Betty R. Lynch is the administrator. Mrs. Estella Bug is the director of nursing. If you want to make sure that your family, your friends are well taken care of, remember it's the Watkins Stevens Skyview Convalescent Home. Dr. A.L. Dial is your optometrist, and certainly he sends congratulations to you today, Clara, on your big day. Dr. A.L. Dial is located at 934 Northeast 8th Street and here in Oklahoma City. If you need an appointment, call 235-0536. That's Dr. A.L. Dial, 934 Northeast 8th Street here in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Rosie Jackson is now out of the hospital, and she's doing nicely. Rosie's Restaurant is located at 217 Northwest 23rd Street. The telephone number is 521-9316. In spite of the fact that Rosie has been ill, the restaurant has been open, and certainly I would like to congratulate her niece Rosie, who's doing a tremendous job. Now, if you want some good soul food, you can go to Rosie's Restaurant, 217 Northwest 23rd Street, here in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Tonight is a night of the big 29th annual Clara Luper's dinner. Previously, many times, with the exception of one, we've had a bean dinner. But this year, it's altogether different because of you. You've been so kind. Tomorrow is Doc Williams' Day. Tomorrow we pause in memory of Doc Williams, where we gather at the Providence Church of the Nazarene, located at 2701 North Kelly Street, in order to give thanks to God for the progress that we have made. At that time, we will present awards to people in this community that we feel have made a difference. We call them the unsung heroes of our community. Many of these people have never made the headlines of our newspapers, but they have continued day in and day out, opening doors of opportunities. That's why we are saying tomorrow, thank you. And if you know any other people whose names that I'm calling, and if you would like to do what I feel is very important, give them their flowers while they live. Tell them that you too appreciate what they have done. Mr. William Hunter, Mr. Horace Stevenson, Miss Evelyn Pittman, Mrs. Lois Felder, Mrs. Shirley Darrell, Sheriff J.D. Sharp, Mr. and Mrs. Sidney Stale, Mrs. Martha Williams, Mr. Lamont Henderson, Mr. Fluky McDaniels, Mr. Arvell Glover, Mr. Marvin Provo, Mrs. Marilyn Hildreth, Mr. George Keys, our county assessor, Mr. and Mrs. Isaac, Kimbrough, and Shelley, one of your favorite. One of your favorite. Your favorite? Yes, one of your favorite.
Davita Davis.
At the library. That's really wonderful. Well, Shelley, when I say one of your favorite, I know all of these are your favorite. And those of you that would like to see and be a part of this worship service, meet us tomorrow at 3 o'clock at the Providence Church of the Nazarene, 2701 North Kelly Avenue. Before we go into our big story, before we go into the big parade today, we would like to pause now for our funeral and death announcements.
McKay Davis has Bob Stafford of Oklahoma City, the husband of Dorothy Stafford, and his services are pending. Linda Wigley of Oklahoma City, and her services are pending. Cheney DeShaver, and her services are pending. Pollard Funeral Home has Mr. Frank Jones, Jr. He passed Friday, and his services are pending. Raw Funeral Home has Mr. Sean L. Robinson. His services are 11 a.m. Monday at Green Pastures Church. Mr. Jesse McDonald. His services are Tuesday at 11 a.m. in the Roth Chapel. And Bishop W.E. Jeffries. His services are Friday at 11 a.m. at the Thompson Temple. Beulah Dixon and her services are pending. Maydale White and her services are pending. Temple Funeral Home has Mrs. Josie Rice. Her services will be at 11 a.m. Wednesday at the Evangelistic Baptist Church. And Mr. Wayne Walker and his services are pending.
We extend our deepest sympathy to all of the families that have suffered the loss of a loved one this week. We extend to you our sincere sympathy. This program is being made possible by Marilyn Hildred of Allstate Insurance Company. And
Merlin sells home insurance, life insurance, and car insurance. You can contact Merlin by calling 427-8399 at home or 848-7470 at the office.
if you need an electrician and you need one in a hurry, call Calvin or Bert. The telephone number is 239-2678. Bert Luper has been in the electrical business for over 30 years in Oklahoma City. Once again, that number is 239-2678 or 424-3785. If you need some electrical work done and done right, call Bert and Calvin, 239-2678, 424-3785. This was a day of the big march. It was a march unlike any other march in the history of this state. To some, it was a new experience. To others, it was a continuation in a long struggle for freedom. 29 years ago, we marched against segregation in public accommodations. And it was not surprising to see many of the marchers who were there 29 years ago marching this morning. But then there were others that were due, that were there. 29 years ago, this city was completely segregated. Black people could not eat in public places. Black people could not use the bathrooms or the toilets in downtown areas. And tonight, as the sit-inners relate their stories, they will find that black people could not live in certain areas. It was not surprising to me to see Ira D. Hall, one of the greatest pioneers of all times, there today. It was not any more than I expected when I saw Mr. Leslie Brown, who had been in many marches. Oh, it was not surprising to see the sit-inners. But never in the history of this state have we had as many automobiles and people in a march as we had today. 29 years later, someone asked, why are we marching? It's very simple. We marched this morning against racial discrimination according to over 100 documented cases at Tinker Air Force Base. Now, I hate to talk about the general, and maybe he hates to talk with me. I was one of the ones that he refused to meet with. But the general stated that we are not given cases, as I understood it. The general did not say to us, hand us the documented cases. Rather, the general refused to meet with a delegation that had been selected by the constituents in the northeast segment of Oklahoma City. The general even went too far, I think, when he stated that we don't have these kind of problems. Well, this morning, I hope the general got the message, because there were planes that were flying over our heads, but the message was clear. The people were there. They were there because they wanted fair and equal treatment for all Tinker Air Force Base employees. How would you feel if you were an employee at Tinker Air Force Base and you had been there working hard, and now some person come in that you will train, and then in a few weeks they will be your boss? Yes, we want to meet face with the commanding officer of Tinker Air Force Base. We have to select our own representatives. If we allowed someone else to select our representatives, the patriots of the Revolutionary period would condemn us because we went to war we went into the Revolutionary War because of taxation without the representation. At Tinkerfield, we want promotions based on justice and not favoritism. We want the jobs back of those people that have been kicked off of the base because of prejudice. We want to see a Tinker Air Force Base that's moving toward what America is all about. Therefore, today, the people came. Now, never before have I seen as many automobiles in any carcade as I saw today. We expected at least 200. But before we took out, we had labored 200 automobiles. And if you want to know how many automobiles there were the day in the carcade as we moved out from Douglas and went to Northeast 23rd and Martin Luther King Avenue and on down Northeast 23rd Street to Midwest Boulevard, let me tell you what happened. The car line extended today from Southeast 29th and Midwest Boulevard to Douglas High School. There were motorcycles, and you haven't seen anything till you have seen those handsome men on those motorcycles. Those men and women were out of sight, and they were there. The automobiles, the church buses, the preachers were there. Oh, the prayers of a Reverend Rogers, a Reverend Mays, a Reverend Overstreet, the words of a Reverend W.B. Parker. The NAACP leadership from all over the state were represented. They came from Muskogee. They came from Anadarko. They came from Lawton. They came from Enid. They came from Wynnewood. Oh, the preachers came too. It was unbelievable. Now, if any of you would like to tell us about what you saw today, 478-2103. You don't have to be afraid. Those people marched out, and I cannot say too much for the police department today. The Oklahoma City Police escort led us, and when they needed additional policemen, they called them in, and they were friendly policemen. They were intelligent policemen, and certainly when we met the Midwest City policemen, they were courteous, and they stayed out there with us. And when we left from across from Tinker Field, the police department was there to make sure that everybody was protected. We were not afraid, though, because the great God of the universe has stood with us. Never before have I seen anything like it. This is the Clara Luper radio show. Hello?
Yes, Clara Luper, this is Eddie Irwine. Me and Calvin, we're sitting here at the house.
Oh, well, wonderful.
Yes, and we are really behind the movement.
Okay, you're behind the movement. Are you coming out to hear this eloquent address by Calvin tonight?
We're listening to you on the radio show right now.
No, I'm talking about tonight. Will you all be with us tonight?
Eddie Irwine and Calvin Luper will represent this because we're thinking about our children in the future. And I think this will be a good movement in order for our children to live for the future that we are establishing for them.
Well, we are really proud of you, and it's so good to hear your voice. And today we've had one of the most heartwarming experiences that I have ever seen.
And I love it.
Well, oh, great.
We got to make establishment for our children so they won't have to go through this.
Well, the segregation is certainly out at Tinker Field because there were many people. We've never seen anything like what we had this morning. Somebody stated that we were just rabble-rousers and we were talking about something.
We are not that. We are trying to make things better for our children.
Okay, well, I also want to make it better for me. I want those Tinkerfield people to receive the best. I want the blacks and the whites of Tinkerfield to be able.
All people.
You're exactly right.
All people. We're not fighting just for our color. We're fighting for everybody's color in order to get things established for our children.
Well, it's very kind of you to take time out from your busy schedule to call, and I know you will be there tonight.
Right. We love you.
Okay, and we love you too. I love you so well, I'm going to ask you to bring us some bread tonight, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, thank you.
We love you.
Okay, bye-bye. I want you to call me. You may call me at 478-2103. The march at Tinkerfield was one of the most successful marches in the history of this state. No one has ever seen anything like it. Now, if you want to know how many cars were in the march, let me repeat. The cars extended from Douglas High School, which is located at 900 North Martin Luther King Avenue, to Northeast 23rd and Martin Luther King Avenue, to Northeast 23rd and Midwest Boulevard, on to Southeast 29th Street. This is Clara Luper.
Yes, Clara, you have talked about the big bash or the big party you're all going to have tonight, but you have not mentioned where it's going to be.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's going to be at the Jimmy Stewart's building, and that's located at 1500 Northeast 4th Street. And I hope I'm right. It's at 1500 Northeast 4th Street in the Jimmy Stewart's building. I love my radio audience. They don't let me mess up on anything.
No, you hadn't mentioned where it was located, and I was just waiting, you know. And I thought, well, how is these listeners going to get there, you know, if they want to participate in it?
Well, my listeners can get there by going to 1500 Northeast 4th Street in the James E. Stewart or Jimmy Stewart's building.
Okay, and what time?
It's exactly 7 o'clock p.m.
Oh.
Now, we need the food there by 6 o'clock p.m. Now, I'll be going off the air at 6, but I've got to make sure that we have all of that food there. And we do have a committee. We have a committee that's out of sight that will be there to put down, and I want every name of every person that brings anything, because we've got to write the history. When I wrote the history of Behold the Walls, some people criticized me because I didn't have their names in the book. Well, the only way I can tell who's doing something is by names. So when you come there to the dinner tonight, we will have a special place for those of you that are bringing food, because I'm going to write another story. It's going to be the story of the dinner that had to be.
Fantastic. I went to school with Marilyn and Calvin.
Well, that is just...
I certainly did.
Were they nice people?
Oh, beautiful people. Absolutely beautiful.
Are you excited about hearing Calvin speak tonight?
Oh, indeed. I certainly am. Oh, yes. Because I graduated from school, Central High School, and I moved to Denver, Colorado, and I came back 9 years ago. And then when I found out the things that Calvin and Marilyn had been involved with, you know, I was just really impressed, no end. So I'm really looking forward to seeing them tonight.
Well, you will see them tonight, and you will hear that melodious, deep voice of Calvin Luper. I'm so excited about it. I don't know what to do. But
Fantastic.
thank you so very kindly, and today has been a great day.
Beautiful.
And I would like to say thanks not only to you, but all that's been a part of it.
Beautiful.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yes, they were there. Your ministers were there today. I saw AME ministers. I saw Reverend Strong of Avery. Oh, I won't start naming preachers until later, but I'm going to tell you they were there. I was so happy not only to see the preachers, but I saw the deacons. I saw Deacon Nesbitt of Fifth Street Baptist Church. I cannot name all the deacons that were there, but the deacons were there. The choir members were there. Oh, yes, the teachers were there. They were there today. And this has certainly been a big day. Mr. Burge told you he was coming, and Mr. Burge was there on time. But we will get together, and we will tell our story. Our story is a long, unending story. It's a story of a group of people that wanted to be free. And I told my daughter Shelley how I felt that night. That night in 1958, when Maryland had suggested that we would go downtown and eat. And Maryland said that we must go now. Gwendolyn Fuller leaned back in her chair and looked at the group. And the group began to sing. Maryland's words echoed through the room. Let's go down to Cat's Drug Store and sit down and drink a Coke. Rita Tolliver seconded the motion. And they were asking, really tonight? And Maryland quoted from Mr. Wisner's typing book. Now is the time for all good men to come to the aid of their party. Tonight is the night. We are going down and we are going to sit. Who understood that better than Mrs. Holmes today? Ira Holmes as she marched. Who will ever forget the words of a Senator Porter as he stood out in the sun today? Or the words of a Reverend Carroll or Reverend Mays? Or Reverend Parker as he spoke today as a prophet? But then let's go back to that hot August night in 1958. And I would like for Shelley to tell you exactly how I felt that night as an advisor.
I could feel the eyes of the NAACP Youth Council members on me. I thought for a brief moment and traced the steps that we had taken. We had been patient, and I saw in the children's eyes reflections of my restless childhood when I wanted to do something about a system that had paralyzed my movements and made me an outsider in my own country. Yet, these were the children whose ages ranged from 7 to 15 years old. I thought about my father who had died in 1957 in the Veterans Hospital and who had never been able to sit down and eat a meal in a decent restaurant. I remembered how he used to tell us that someday he would take us to dinner and to parks and zoos. And when I asked him when was someday, he would always say, someday will be real soon, as tears ran down his cheeks. So my answer was yes, tonight is the night. History compels us to go, and let's history alone be our final judge. We had another problem. We didn't have any transportation. Ruth Tolliver and I discussed the situation and decided to call 3 people that we knew wouldn't turn us down. Portwood Williams Sr., Lillian Oliver, and Mary Pogue were selected. I called Portwood Williams first. He lived in the next block. Mr. Williams was a talkative man with a sharp tongue, quick wit, and an adequate supply of words. He said, I want to volunteer to drive car number 1 down to Cat's Drug Store. My car is clean and ready. I don't blame you. I shined Mr. Charlie's shoes and my mother washed Miss Ann's clothes. Now I'm an upholsterer, the best in town, and my car is ready. I'll be there. My next call was to Mrs. Lillian Oliver, a quiet, dignified, tall school teacher and one who had served as an assistant NAACP Youth Council advisor. I had known her since 1940 and through the years. We had been very close friends. I told her that I needed another car to take the NACP youth down to Cat's drugstore. She didn't ask any questions. She said, "I'll be there in a few minutes. If you all are crazy enough to go, I'm crazy enough to take you." I hurried back into the house and called Mary Pogue, the mother of two of the youth. I knew that she would make me explain everything to her in detail, and she did. After I finished, she said, "I'll be there in a few minutes." I rushed out of my house, and on a still hot August night, August 19th, 1958, we headed to Cat's drugstore in the heart of Oklahoma City. I went to the three cars and called the following names: Richard Brown, Elmer Edwards, Linda Pogue, Lana Pogue, Arita Tolliver, Calvin Luper, Marilyn Luper, Portwood Williams Jr., Linzetta Jones, Gwendolyn Fuller, Alma Faye Posey, Barbara Posey, Goldie Battle, and Betty Germany.
There you have how I felt that August night. But on this August day, I'm really honored. I was honored because you honored yourselves. Today you say to the world, we know we belong. We have paid the price. Now, we've got to have our rights. So to you, the commanding officer of Tinkerfield, I call upon you to step out now. Call for a meeting where you will allow us to select our own delegation. And I call upon you. You don't have to be an Uncle Tom anymore. You don't have to grin every time you see someone that's in charge. I want that personality out, but I don't want you to be an Uncle Tom. Now, someone walked up and told me today that they have some Uncle Toms and some Aunt Jemimas out to Tinkerfield. That does not have to be. And I'm going to run a contest to see who are the Uncle Toms. And if you're an Uncle Tom, the world should know you are an Uncle Tom. You shouldn't be an Uncle Tom out there Uncle Tomming by yourself. And I want you to send to me. My name is Clara Luper. My address is Post Office Box 11106 here in Oklahoma City. Call me and let's see who is the outstanding Uncle Tom or Aunt Jemima out to Tinkerfield. As I look at the clock on the wall, I know it's time for me to go. I hate to say goodbye to you, but maybe I'll say just so long until this evening at 5:15 when I will be broadcasting from the Jimmy Stewart's building here in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. I will be telling you the things that I want you to remember. And this is Clara Luper saying, I know you love me because you have baked that food, you have treated me right, and I know you love me. And wherever you are, just remember now that Clara Luper knows that you love her. And you've got to, because I love you. Bye-bye.